This video I wanted to kind of talk about, because I saw a video on Pam Gregory talking about the geomantic, something to do with the Earth, right? So, and because Uranus is in Taurus, currently in Taurus, it's going to be there for, I don't know, quite a while. So, but I wanted to go deep into it and see what there is, and I saw that there were certain aspects. I did some research on it, and I noticed that, you know, with there are certain dates in the year for 2024 where Uranus will be in strong aspects to many of the other planets. So, but I decided to also add a bit of my own take on it. I have been working with, asteroids specifically, and just because they're asteroids, they're not. Doesn't mean that they're strong. I forgot who said this, but one of the astrologers said that, it's like a pebble in the beach. Just because it's a pebble, and if it's really sharp, that will be kind of a, what do you call this? It's small, but it's significant, because it's something that probably that you stepped on, you hurt yourself from it, or something that's very shiny, something that's very significant. So it's not about the size, it's, because it's the way the universe is, right? So it's not about size, it's not about quantity, it's about quality, really. But being also familiar with the Uranian energy myself, because I have it in my chart, and it's really strong. So I'm very familiar with these instabilities and unpredictabilities of life, and it's just going, it's just, sorry, adjusting my camera here. So it's, feeling nervous. Yeah, totally. So anything to do with changes, sudden changes, nervousness, earthquakes, sort of that kind of feel of instability, anything that has to do with instability, electricity as well. Definitely technologies, especially like high-tech technology, because it is a higher vibration of Mercury. It is more about an extended sort of that energy of, how do you call this? Communication, transmission. I don't think I added here. I probably add that for the month of February, because what I'm going to do today is I'm just going to go through the chart for the month of January. There are four of them, but I'm going to show you the first one, which is dated January 9th, right? When Uranus will be, what is this one here? Uranus will be, it's trying several planets. Mainly trying the sun, but there's something else here. So I wanted to look into, next time I'll add Make to this, because Make, according to astro.com, is said to be higher vibration of Uranus. So a lot of the Make is our ability to work with intuition and creativity. It's similar to core, if you want to think about it that way, but Make is it's manifestation, really. So it's like really up there, and really up there when it comes to personal ability to understand what thinking is, what is thinking, what is communication, what is all that stuff, right? But for now, we're going to go into sort of the basic astrology stuff. Not really basic, but here it goes. So, I'm going to show you the chart actually, right here. Okay. So, as you may already see there, so you have, sorry, I should take out the markup here, so you could really see where I'm going. Okay, so Uranus right here. So currently, it's in retrograde. Okay. January 9th. It's going to be in retrograde for a long while. I'm not really sure. I didn't check how long that is for. But retrograde is not something to be scared of. Retrograde is that feeling of being made aware of what needs to be, what needs to be worked on. It is a collective, seen as it affects us on a collective level, but individually, Uranus is there to shake things up, right? Because if we're too complacent, we're too all that stuff. It's not. Yeah, it doesn't keep us awake, and Uranus was like one of the older gods in mythology. Uranus was Uranus. So I don't know pronounce that right, but the sky god. So he was the father of the Titans, right? So much more, like more wisdom, more out there. You can see it that way if you would like to, if you want to. So this is going to help us awaken. This is going to help us be more aware of the patterns that we need to work on. Specifically, with its, we ignore the houses because this is not particularly in one place in the world. So, but it is in Taurus. So it's really shaking things up when it comes to like, it could be things like nature, it could be things like what we do with nature, farming, what we do with our sensuality, what we do with our sense of stability. It's the opposite. We have to learn how to embrace that change, especially when it's sudden and then unexpected. Absolutely. We have to find ways to ground ourselves. That's what, when you see the opposite of stability and instability, usually we point at, you only look at the ones we don't want to. So it's a shadow thing, right? Because we have to look into it and say, well, okay, then how do I become more present in that regard? What do I do to become more grounded, more present, be here in the moment? The future isn't here. And this is another thing where, Uranus is about reformations, reforms, revolutions. So changes, turning things, upside down. But for that reason, it means that we've been asleep. Means we've been too afraid. It's a planet. It's the one that's the biggest body, has the most influence. You can see that after Saturn. So that means when we've been living in fear, Uranus is there to shake things up and going, okay, need to wake up. So with Uranus right here, I'm going to work with the opposition first because that's very important. On January 9, starting January 9, Uranus is going to be opposite of Pallas Athena. And for those who don't know Pallas Athena was she was the goddess of weaving creative and intellectualized like warfare and how to fight properly, when to fight, when to know how to fight figuratively and literally, right? And Pallas Athena, I'm going to go deep into this one right here as much as I can. So Pallas Athena represents in our psyche our part of ourselves that is about strategy, right? Overcoming your fear of success. It says here, advocacy for the oppressed. And I saw this on the website. Father-daughter relationships, that could be also part of that. So anything that's passed on. What is father-daughter relationship, right? When you look at that in that regard, what is the father? Yeah, again, basically, what is passed on, generational knowledge, right? Diplomacy, tact, approach to life, analysis, resourcefulness, cunningness, immorality, harshness, justice, courage, linked to higher self. I see this as for me, I call it as the kind of the link between the horizontal and the vertical, as Eckhart puts it. You have wisdom, because Pallas Athena was the goddess that was born through Zeus's head. But it's funny because if you look at the mythology, Athena was actually not just born out of Zeus's head just like that. But if you look at it that way first, just see it that way, it's something to do with being more balanced with your sexuality, being more balanced with the male-female energy, the masculine, feminine. You can also be asexual. It could also be like gender has no norm anymore. I would say in this regard, like Uranus is trying to wake us up and continuously, because it is in retrograde, to what is it about sexuality? What is it that we need to change? What is it that really we need to wake up from and say, oh, is this male, is this female? Does it really matter? Right? And if we looked at it, is in Scorpio. So Pallas Athena in Scorpio is very strong. A lot of transformative energy, a lot of push and a lot of pressure, a lot of that sort of really in-depth, even taboo approaches to what we need to know about not only sexuality, but also our role in life in terms of how we approach it, how we fight it, right? The fears we have with our own personal abilities and success, our own ability to be wise, our own ability to be creative and smart and whole, really, right? And going back to the mythology, she was actually the daughter of, I forgot who it was, Metis, whatever. And she was pregnant with Athena, but Zeus was afraid that Athena would take over. Similar story, again, so that's what Saturn represents, right? Saturn represents limitations. Say, I'm afraid something will happen. I'm afraid that something might change. This is where Uranus comes in. But Athena, right in the middle here, opposing Uranus, we have to balance and figure out what it means to embrace that change of things that are happening around us that seem to be so comfortable and sensual and beautiful and just like, it's easy. No, we have to wake up from that and say, what is that? The norms we've been living with before, even like earlier in your life, earlier in our lives, what is right? What do I stand for? What is my sexuality? What are my skills? Pallas Athena also represents the underdogs. Okay, she represents those who are. She's always guiding people in the mythology. Athena was always guiding people who were trusting, who was always working towards their goals, but at the same time knew that they needed help. So there's a lot of guidance that will come through with Pallas Athena, especially in Scorpio. It's very instinctive. It's very guidance towards trauma, any traumatic experience that we might have had before, possibly like being stuck in that trauma, being stuck in the fears we've had before, and trying to go beyond that and saying, really transforming and saying, okay, what do we need to do to connect again? Right? Also talks about here. Here we go. So with Athena's birth, something about Hera's jealousy or rejoicing over Athena's birth. So it's something to do with mother-daughter, again, relationship. So parent-child, or in other words, your inner parent, inner child issues that you feel that you don't love yourself, or because you're not loved by others, but it really isn't that. You gain from the wisdom, and when you learn to pace yourself, when you learn to be in the present moment and really connect with your own inner wisdom, your inner guidance, your inner abilities, your inner intellect, inner creativity, all of it, right? And strategize by biding your time. That's also very Scorpio. You want to bide your time in the whole process, right? So she also represents future thinking, like thinking ahead, which ties in a lot with the Uranians, or more like Aquarius sort of thing, where it's about new things, revolution. Because when in the myth, when Athena was, when the city of Athens was not yet called Athens, Poseidon was in competition with her to see who would be the patron god of the city. Poseidon gave them trade, water, sea power, access to the water and transportation, and also the first horse. But these are all just like ways to get around. Athena knew that they needed something more basic, something a little bit more like grounded first before they can go out there and travel, before they can explore. She gave them wood, oil, and food. So that, what did that give them? Oh, sorry, she gave them the olive tree, which gave them wood, oil, and food. So it's a representation, a symbolism of the going back to your basics, but at the same time finding. So this is what that battle is. It's like in a more physical level, your inner battles, your sort of like you have to go look into your physical self instead of just jumping into like, I want to escape this, I want to transcend, because that's Poseidon too, that's Neptune, she's transcendence, right? But Neptune is way out there. Pallas Athena is right here. What can we gain from the lessons we've learned in this three-dimensional world and balance that with the changes that are happening and say, okay, that doesn't work anymore, that doesn't serve me as product. You want to use the material things we have in life today and the physical things, even if it's not necessarily physical or material, it could still be concepts of the 3D world, concepts of the notions, the old notions that may still serve purpose, may still help you elevate to make sure. And when you say elevate, I don't mean like escape, transcend. Many people get that wrong, where it's like, I want to escape. That's just more ego, right? Eckhart says this: if you try to ignore something like get rid of the ego, that's just more ego. If you blame the ego, that's more ego, because the ego has a purpose. You need to revitalize that and come up, find ways to, have a healthier ego the way you're supposed to when you were a child. Not supposed to, but it's part of evolution. I'll go through that later. I'll actually give you pointers on this one. I'll have to be more grounded in what's, for me at least, what works for me. All right. So it's also about being able to preserve your chastity, your purity. In this case, it could be literal, but it could also be figurative, meaning that, because Athena was supposed to be wedded to Hephaestus, but apparently in the myth, there's a version of the myth where Hephaestus tried to make love to her or whatever on their wedding day, the night of the consummation, right? But Athena wasn't there, or rather she left. So that shows that it's like, even though, because connecting this to the other story of the version of the myth where Hephaestus tried to rape her, this shows this symbolizes forgiveness. It's like moving past the trauma through service and lessons passed up. There is Pallas Athena, specifically Pallas Athena. I know I'm throwing those words around like Athena, Pallas Athena, same thing. So that there's Pallas Athena is like Chiron. You work through your forgiveness by embracing your inner child. That's creativity, right? And saying that, okay, and using logic or intellect and objectivity, but at the same time knowing that what you've experienced is valid, and yet at the same time that was the past. It ties in a lot with what needs to be recreated, this change that needs to be changed from our own sexuality, our own, like maybe this is Taurus, so maybe we've experienced a lot of too much comfort, or rather comfort in staying where we are because we feel like we're afraid to change, we're afraid that we might be betrayed again, or afraid that we might experience more trauma. This is a time to, Uranus in the opposition to Pallas Athena is really showing us that it's like we need to find ways to forgive ourselves. Forgiveness has nothing to do with another person. Some people have heard this before, but it really is about moving past that, and there are ways to go around it. But here's the thing, it starts with the body. Okay, so you basically get the point. I don't want to go too much into detail, but the point is that you are guided, you are loved, you are protected, as long as you find a way to go back into childlikeness and your creativity, and learn to be objective, but at the same time not to overthink things. by allowing things to be in the past where it is and see it as just like more like, oh, it's a thought, it's a memory. Now to do that, of course, we need to see where we're going. So, but before we go into that, I want to make sure that you understand that when it comes to Palestine, she was also the goddess who tended to, well, one like many of the gods, she tended to conclude and misproject power, or misproject like her anger when she was, when she was, like for example, the story between her and Arachne, that Arachne defeated her in this weaving contest. That you don't want to be too conclusive when it comes to when someone beats you in a competition or a fight or a battle, whatever it is that you're going through, or that you yourself don't do that to yourself. You're not too hard on yourself, right? This is also about, that's part of the forgiveness process, where it's like you work through what you need to work through, be objective about it, wait for guidance, look for guidance, or rather allow for guidance to happen by being in the moment. And that's part of the whole process. In that case, now you're going to be guided naturally, instead of saying, oh, you're so hard on yourself, being conclusive. Pallas Athena refers to that whole, like, there's a bit of aggression that might happen if you feel like you feel like you're alone, you're not guided, you're not loved, you're just disregarded, your people avoid you, people reject you, you're ostracized, those kind of things, you're singled out. Athena's kind of, it was this thing as well, she was singled out, she was like so special, but because you're so special, kind of ties in with Arachne, so she was so special, she had this, so she projected onto Arachne that Arachne was smarter than her when it comes to weaving, or in other words, understanding things. So there's a shadow, right? So watch out for the shadow, especially now because it is in Scorpio, really going deep within. Okay, so being able to discern, this is Pallas Athena, being able to discern and process things, where you gain wisdom from the fact that everything is one and the same, exact thing, and being able to use your inner eye. I feel like Pallas Athena has something to do with the inner eye, and gaining wisdom from that as well, by also coming in touch with the emotions, right? Because they're all linked together, being able to communicate. But we have to work on this as well, which is tied to the higher vibration of Mercury, which is Uranus. It makes sense. So really able to communicate what we want, being able to be honest with ourselves, and really dig deep into those emotions and gain wisdom from that. The trine that we get from where Uranus trine right here, trine Sun. I know that the chart is kind of confusing. Right here means that it will show us to we can naturally are able to, because Uranus in retrograde is not like Uranus non-retrograde. So Uranus in retrograde means that we need to continuously process what is change for us. What does change mean for us on an individual level? Of course, collectively, we are working through this and figuring out how do we work with the unpredictability? How do we go through that? The lessons that we have to learn. How do we, elevate through that? Because sometimes it's almost like Uranus in retrograde is like Saturn, where it's like change doesn't really happen naturally, or the opposite, where change will consistently happen, but it's very almost subtle. It's more internalized. I would say on a more material level, physical level, it's not necessarily like these things that are probably going to be mentioned, that it's like for example, like technology might be really affected, but it's more like our internal, so it's going to be affecting us more internally, our own sense of the things that we deal with when it comes to unexpected things. To be more specific, I'm going to dive into this a little bit more by okay, Saturn. Okay, yeah, so that's right, I forgot. So your inner need to want change should be non-conformative, non-conforming, deviance. You being a misfit, being being super smart or being the opposite of that, finding out your own sense of originality, your own sense of your own magic within as well, your own light, right? Your own ability to kind of break things down. And Uranus represents breaking things out of things. So by looking at the little things in life and learning to appreciate that. So when it comes to Taurus, it's because of course it's sensuality, it's stubbornness, being able to be steadfast, but not just being stubborn for the sake of stubbornness, figuring out how can I take things slowly and work with the changes that are coming through or that I'm experiencing, whether it's external or internal. I would say most likely internal. It's more important to work on internal, then the external world will show up, right? There's that, I don't know if it's people have talked about it, there's some people, Aaron Dowdy, who's actually posted videos on, how you have the mirror. You don't want to change what's in the mirror that you see, you have to change what's inside. It's just the same thing, right? So working with that inner chaos, working with your vibrations, probably working through things like working with vibrational things like learning to ground yourself through by different frequencies that help you ground yourself in all of the chakras if you want to, whatever does work for you. I personally have been I've been changing things and becoming more grounded through many, many, many things. But again, I'll go through that a bit later after this one. Okay, so again, your sense of individuality. So that ties into the sun here, where your sense of individuality might come through, but you have to kind of question that. People will tend to question this in the month of January at the very least. Well, next year. Actually, the whole of next year, people will question their sense of individuality, where they belong, how they would like to feel free, what is freedom to them, what needs to be broken down, kind of what needs to be worked through inside. It's been kind of molded through past generational things in past life and your early life. It doesn't matter whether it's reincarnated life, it doesn't matter, all of it, right? That whole what seems stable but actually creates instability. Uranus rules attraction and repulsion, or detraction, I suppose. I don't know, whatever, right? So that means that it's magnetism, but it's like the moon. It's like what goes here, what doesn't go here. So it's time to kind of see what works. That's what it's saying. It's like what works now, what can work for me right now, what is serving for me now, and embrace the fact that will not be permanent. Uranus represents impermanence. So that means that anything that has to do with the past that you feel makes you safe will not be the case. Because if there was just permanence, there's no impermanence. If it was just all permanence, what do you think would happen to the negative things? Exactly. They will be permanent. We don't want that. So it's the same thing. Change is a natural part of life and everything in the universe, right? Otherwise, what's the point? Okay. It also represents egotistical behavior. So probably because you're so focused on individualism. When there's a trine, remember that it's a comfortable energy that you'll probably be feeling, especially with Sun in Capricorn, which is all about moving slowly. Okay, it's great. But then when you're so comfortable, what happens when you're too complacent? Again, you get shocked. So working with the joy and the fun and the childlikeness of, you want to be childlike about energy. And it's for example, like when I take a cold shower, when I'm in my cold shower, I dance in the cold shower. I just do whatever. I just there's part of the back, there's the ego going like, what if you make a fool out of yourself? I'm like, fuck that. Who cares? Go with it. And so I'm using the energy of this whole Uranian energy of individuality, breaking things down, the sudden things, unpredictable, just kind of things. But it makes you feel probably like vulnerable, especially if, let's say, Uranus were to square your moon. If Uranus was squaring your moon, let's say you have moon in Aquarius and around 19 degrees, or Leo in Aquarius, Moon in Leo in around 19 degrees, or even Moon in Scorpio, you'll start to feel, you'll get that hit of nervousness that you'll be like, you'll be a little bit more sensitive towards your senses and what's surrounding you. Because I have that energy all the time, and I've learned to work with it and say, okay. But it doesn't necessarily mean that I have to be afraid or give into fear. That's the key. It's not being giving to fear. Being afraid is one thing. Giving into it is another thing, right? So, a lot of turbulence. Of course, we know that it might lead to other things physically. But right now, what I'm doing right now is to figure out what it means for us on an individual level internally. It's also the time when we try to realize what is our, like what is again sexuality, sensuality, and your sex, gender. That also comes to that because Uranus represents sexlessness. Uranus represents technically bisexuality, but not really. More than that, it's like what is gender? What is the idea of gender? Because I mean that's a norm, right? And when you have a norm, that's very normal. So that is very much a Saturnian thing. Uranus is the opposite of that. Okay, be careful. Also, I wouldn't say be careful, but watch out for anything that might be changed. Perversions. When I say perversion, it doesn't necessarily mean sexual perversion, but it can be. What it means for you as yourself. This also, one of the things that I work with for myself is a lot of the shadow work. Figure out, okay, what is the gift behind all that stuff? Again, this will be part of what I do later. So that the trine will show your sense of individuality because it is a sign of your own creativity and also intuition, ability to do that. But again, be careful of when we have to be careful when we're too complacent and just like start to feel comfortable. Oh, it's an earth. Okay, things are kind of slowing down. Okay, great. But then all of a sudden something comes along, a person in your life, an experience, a loss, a more trauma, someone's death, okay, whatever, you name it. You want to balance that. And this is where the opposition of Palistina comes in, and being in the moment and working through our deeps, inside, working deep within and figuring out how do I connect, how do I ground myself and really connect. Right? So, but we also see here that it is trying to Orcus. Here we go. You probably already see this right here. We have a grand trine happening here. The Sun, Uranus in retrograde, Orcus right there. Okay, right there. So again, this is starting January 9. The moon will eventually, the sun will eventually shift later on because that's the one that's going to move. Orcus is going to be there for a while, a long while, because Orcus is even farther away from the sun than Uranus itself. So it's going to be there for a while. But it is trine to Orcus, as the sun is as well. So the grand trine represents, because it's a grand trine, it's going to feel comfortable, and people are going to be probably feel like they are working through their abilities, working through their own sense of creativity, individuality, where they fit into the world, all those things, because Orcus represents integrity, what we promised ourselves, what we really, 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 truly want, and how to, being able to figure out. It's not even about figuring out. Orcus has more to do with, is this really what it's, it's this kind of like the shadow. It's like Pluto, right? Yeah, let's look at this one. So Orcus, okay. So Pluto complement death, rebirth, transformation, afterlife, renewal, reinvention, depth, retribution, broken problems, realization, vocation. So your things that you subconsciously or unconsciously or in the past have promise to yourself. And sometimes it can't be something you remember, and that's okay, right? But really being aware of why, this is why slowing down and being present is always key, because when we're always in a rush and we're always in the head, what happens is we overthink things and we're not really connected to inner truth. Now, we're not just talking about inner truth as in inner truth like divine timing truth, but how we are connected to that. So inner truth is like what really makes us shine, because this is trying to the sun. This is connected to your identity, your individuality, your sense of yourself, right? But it's once we get too much into that and it becomes egoic, then yeah, it becomes kind of like we don't know what the truth is anymore. Things that are also probably hidden truth or subconscious truth. This will be the time to. This will be when we probably feel like we can. It might feel like it's going to happen naturally, because it's going to feel like we're going to be able to see that, okay, I'm transforming, okay, I'm healing, great. And then comes a point where it's like, and it gets a little too methodical. The earth is usually about the physical things, the material things, right? It's in the earth signs. And usually what happens there, I notice with earth signs, is like when you have that combination, especially when you have a grand trine, it almost feels like it's become like, oh, as long as I'm doing the work, I'll be okay. As long as I'm here and stable, I'm okay. As long as I'm following a method, oh, that's okay. But what happens is that because we have a trine here, it's making us it's making us feel, it makes us lazy. So even though it's in retrograde, Orcus in retrograde is like repetitive questioning of like, what is it I want? What is it that I want? What is it that is, what is it that I'm truly feeling? What is the truth? Where am I headed? What is it that really makes me, happy? What is it that makes me, and then we see where even the lines there, where it's like what yourself makes me happy. Is that an ego feel, or is that really me as in us, like we, as in like you're connected? It's like, think about it this way, like you're a cell in a body. You have your own unique purpose in the cell in the body. That's your uniqueness. That's your individuality. That's Uranus right here. But you're part of a whole as well. Like the waves of the ocean. You are not the waves. You are the ocean itself. And the sooner we realize that, the sooner you realize that, you start to become more accepting of the fact that it's like, okay, that's okay. And then we go back to the whole impermanence thing. It's okay. Nothing has to be permanent. That's the feeling of Earth. It feels like it's going to feel like, things are stable, things are going to be like this for a long time. And you get very complacent. And all of a sudden, bam! Someone fucks you over, and all of a sudden you can't handle it and you don't know what to do. This is the time, I would say, is the time to, because it's the beginning of the year, a time to really work on, as Eckhart tells us, when you try to practice conscious or being present, when you practice being present, go with me with the breath. Let it not be about the label or the outcome, that it's like, oh, I'm doing this, I have to make time for this. That's the doing. Be in the being. Even I go through this myself. I sometimes forget, I need to make time for that. I didn't make time for that. Oh no, I didn't. And then all of a sudden it's like, it's starting to feel egoic. Surrendering, literally surrendering. And Orcus reveals that too. It's very Plutonian, right? So when we're too hard on ourselves because we didn't get to do this, we didn't follow procedure, we didn't make time for this, I wasn't spiritual enough, I wasn't changing enough, I was trying to look for truth, but I didn't find the truth yet, I don't know where I'm headed, all those things, that's outcome related. That's looking for the outcome, that's looking for the end result, that's the doing. We're attached to time, right? Because that's what it is. It's attaching yourselves to time. But that's not the reality. The fact that I'm speaking right now, this is just a body, and it's, you know, it's, you don't even try. You just surrender to the moment by allowing, and then you'll start to notice it's like, inspiration will come through. Guidance will come through. You know exactly what to do, right? And that's the thing about it. It's always, things in the 3D world there's always a polarity, always a polarity, and that's okay because that's how we learn. That's how you manifest reality, and that's real manifestation. Your manifestation is your connection to your whole self, the higher self, your source. You know, you're like the, as Eckhart puts it, the rays of the sun, right? It's definitely more than that for sure, but that's the analogy, right? That's you can use that as an analogy. Okay. So figuring out what is those things by not trying to figure it out, just letting it come to you bit by bit, by timing, trusting from within, and then eventually that faith will come through. That's what real faith is. Faith is being able to know that it's like, oh, I don't know what's happening. Okay, that's okay. And you don't need to convince yourself. You just let go. It's not about this wanting to let go. It's not about, I want to let go. I'm forcing myself to let go. I'm really relaxing. But it's not. You know, it's the energy, right? Everything is energy. So as to kind of give more, you know, it's about the way I found Orcus it's kind of like Orcus is like this urge to cleanse, you know, where I wrote down here, where the ego and shadow become tools for truth and lessons, thus more in touch with true purpose, right? So ego dying, healthy ego. Acceptance. A healthy ego is a good thing because that means you're working with 3D, but you're not attached to it. Right? Okay. So there's that. Looking into the other charts here. On the next day, is that the 29th? On January. Where did I put them here? Was this actually January 9? Yeah, this was January 9. What comes after January 9? January 28th. Okay, so yeah. So you're not going to see January 28th here, but what I do see is that Uranus will be... Uranus will not be... Uranus will not be in retrograde. Uranus will be trine. It will be direct again, and it will trine Mercury. So a time for this natural... we have this is a good time to be able to communicate our own inner truth, our individuality, because Mercury will be in Capricorn, and again Uranus is still going to be in Taurus. So being able to express what really means the truth to us individually, an individual, without pushing anything, you know, without being controlling, and without being rebellious, without being overly, you know, egotistical and egoic, okay? And really learning to listen from within. It's also it's going to be trining, so the Mercury will replace the Sun in this case. And while that's the case, it's going to be more about the expression of individuality itself. But while Orcus is still retrograde, it's still going to be a sort of an inward search. Then I look into the 29th. Uranus will be still trining Mercury and also trine Orcus, of course. But the thing is, though, the Sun will be squaring Uranus. So here, people, you might feel this sort of pressure to, um, like you need to prove yourself to other people. Like you need to have this sort of this energy that's like, okay, I need to be with other people because otherwise they will be the symbol of my worth. They will be the symbol of what makes me, me. And it's just more ego. And especially with the sun in going into Taurus, going into Aquarius by late January, what that's going to do is it's going to be heightened by Uranus itself. It's going to make it feel like individualism, identity, and this feeling of sovereignty of people, this feeling of like what people shine, is going to be a little more on the people might start to feel more stubborn about it. There's a sort of Aquarian Taurus feel to this one as well. It's just going to feel like Aquarius is going to be not just like this rebellious side, but like stubbornly rebellious. So you want to watch out for those. And while that's happening as well, Uranus will also be squaring Diana. So Diana is an asteroid, but Diana is self-preservation, self-protection, protection of those who are in need, protection those who are probably vulnerable. But it's in retrograde, and it's in the sign of Leo. So that's going to be enhanced by the sun. So it's going to be more about working with people, working with feeling like, you'll need to be kind of maybe like in charge of things. But because of the square, it's almost like you'll start to kind of you'll start to identify with that and looking for the underdog might kind of come off as something that is, it's going to probably watch out for it becoming egoic, right? Especially when Diana was also, there's going to be a grand T square there. So Diana is going to be opposing the sun in this case as well. So that's the big one. Forget the trines. Right now we're going to be working on, this is the 28th of January, 29th, sorry, of January. And with Diana opposing the sun, it's almost like the self will be more like something that you need to protect, or to people. You might even go toward protecting others who are very, very like self-reliant, possibly. That's the way you could work with this energy. But, we need to bring it together. When you have an opposition, you need to bring that together. But when you have this grand trine, you need to work on balancing I would say here the focal point would be on Uranus, because it is the two opposing forces will be like kind of be able to work together and balance that. But while there's this other planet that's squaring that, it'll feel like this sort of, we need to be aware and be awake all the time and saying, oh, if we're becoming complacent about this, if that's becoming too comfortable, then we need to change that, right? So especially now, it's these are in fixed signs, so naturally stubbornness is going to come through. And it's going to feel like, maybe there's a lot of stability happening, but then when change takes place, it's like you need to be aware of that. Uranus is pulling at both planets to come together. It's like that. So when you bring your legs together, it's almost like come together, come on, wake up. But wake up to both. Are people being too focused on themselves? Are you being too, because even when you're altruistic, that can be an egoic thing as well. So it doesn't matter what you do, whether you're focusing on yourself or focusing on others. It doesn't matter. The point is becoming more aware of like, what does that mean? Okay. So that's it for the month of January. And that's all I'm going to do for today. So one thing I know that works for me is the Wim Hof method, and it works really, really well because it's really grounding, because you surrender to the cold, and then your body gets used to it over time. As much as people would still like to, because you get caught up in this dopamine high, you get caught up in the past and all those things. You surrender to it, and take it from me. I've had many dark nights of the soul where, and I get many ones, and continuously, you know, flaying of that ego, flaying of that ego, flaying of that ego, flaying of that ego. And, you start to really realize the wealth you have from within rather than from without. But you can't really go through that unless you really truly experience trauma on a continual basis. And the closest I can share with you with my experience is go into the cold shower. But of course, you have to train the body. This is a practice, just like being present is being a practice. But you can combine the two together. It doesn't have to be separate. So one way I know how to do this is not just the Wim Hof method, but shadow work. I was doing this earlier last night because there was just something that happened at work, and there was a student who was complaining, saying that he said to give me a second chance, that I would be like, something like I would be able to evaluate his English. And it brought up some negative, heavy feelings of like unworthiness, feeling like, like just sort of like you're closed in, but I sat with it, and I really sat with it, and I really sat with it. And I worked on at the same time what it means, instead of pointing fingers at him for being conclusive and emotional, irrational, and judgmental. I processed that, and I used one of the tools from Debbie Ford's book, Dark Side of the Light Chasers. I'll put in a link below if you'd like to purchase that one. But this is what got me started in shadow work. And at first, of course, you might think it's like, okay, it's the method, it's another tool. But tools are tools. That's all it is. Tools are tools. That's it. We don't need to be attached to tools. We just need to see it for what it is. So when I was doing this, I what do you call this? Because we need to work with this Uranus energy, right? Because it's feeling of nervousness, feeling of unpredictability. We might also have a tendency to point fingers at others, because that's projection. And what does that? Purpose? 3 point back at you, and you have the finger here, and 3 point back at you. It's unhealthy, and for me, at least for me, I've gotten tired of that negative feeling, that down feeling. It was affecting my health. I wasn't happy. We're talking like genuine happy. I wasn't like really happy. I wasn't even manifesting a lot of things. Now I'm like, things are coming through, things are becoming more open. I feel much lighter, not just only because of the vegan thing, but but also just lighter and surrendering. But I didn't really learn that until it started with the shadow work, but it didn't really get enhanced and like extremely like elevated until I worked with the body. And because what happens is that, I don't know if you know this, but when we experience trauma, and it comes in different forms, there's also childhood trauma. When we experience trauma, even if it's not necessarily narcissistic, psychopathic, or sociopathic parents or families, or Machiavelli parents, it doesn't matter. It's what happens is, as humans, as humans, we don't do it the way we used to, or like, in the past we'd shake it off. This is why birds shake off their feathers, and antelopes jump up and down, and cats kind of just like, you can release it physically. They automatically do that, and they walk away. They have to do that. But we as humans, we come to develop this mammalian brain, and just stuck in that. It gets lodged in, and into the to the where it's automatic, the reptilian brain. It gets lodged down there, and it becomes this unconscious thing. This is why we pointed fingers at everyone. Add to that past lives and experience and trauma, and energies that are brought down into this. So it's like this overload of basically lifetimes of wounding and trauma. So the way I would go about this is, first of all, you have to figure out what it is you're pointing your finger at. What is it that you're telling this person? What is it not telling? What are you projecting, really? So you're going to this person and going, okay, he's judgmental. Okay, if that triggers you right now, it's not triggering me as much. Well, that's a good thing, but that means I've been working at it. And it's, to be honest with you, when it comes to shadow work, it's mostly become more, I wouldn't say necessarily natural, automatic, but it's helped me to keep in mind that, that I'm tired. I will not compromise peace. I will not compromise true peace. Not just like, oh, relaxed, I want to be quiet. No, peace, like internal peace, internal, that thing. Right? And when I devoted myself to that, when I made a promise, consciously made a promise, so that I will not be affected by that. It's not perfect. There are times where I have reactiveness as well, where I do get a bit angry, might raise my voice a little bit, but it's not about the raising, it's not about the doing, it's the energy I'm feeling. Am I reacting to that? Am I giving into that? Am I latched onto that energy? Or do I just surrender to being, and just, once you're being, you surrender to it. So you want to figure out what the word is that you are labeling against that person. That you're saying, oh, he's judgmental, he's an asshole, he's, I don't know, he's ignorant, he's stupid, he's pathetic, those kind of things, right? You can name it, whatever it is. Any word that triggers you, especially if it's pointing towards you. In my case, it was the word stupid. Like, it's like, you're not worthy of this, you're stupid. So what I would do is, and this is, I can feel a bit of the energy right there. You can list them down, and you pick the ones that are strongest, and sense it in yourself, meditate on it a bit, and figure out, when you hear that word, and you see that word, does it trigger something in you? The higher the trigger, that's the one you focus on first, and then you go down the list. If it is a list that you're going through. If it's just a few words or one word, that's fine. But the point is that you create some sort of mantra with this. And this is step one. So actually step one was to figure out what those words are, or what that word is that triggers you, especially when it's pointing towards you. It could be also outwards, but mostly towards you, because it's going to affect your self-worth, your sense of identity. It's trauma. And the breathing exercise mantra would be simple. It could be a breath work. It could be through the Wim Hof method. But you go with in. When you breathe in, you say, for example, I am stupid. You say, I am stupid. I am smart. I am stupid. I am smart. And then you do it backwards. I am smart. I am stupid. Smart, stupid. You don't make it a routine. Don't make it a sort of method. Just as you breathe. And then you can practice in front of a mirror as well. This one really helps, because the more you repeat the word, the more it starts to lose its energy and hold on you. You look at the mirror and you literally say, okay, I am stupid. The one that's negative, the one that affects you, that triggers you. I am stupid. I am stupid. I am stupid. It's not that you want to identify with that. It sounds a little weird. But it's not about identifying with it. It's about getting rid of the power of that word. Right? And this will not work until it's done physically. Okay? Physically, it will resolve this rub. If you see in the post on the link, there's a quote there by Rumi. If you are irritated by every rub, how will your mirror be polished. Okay. Right, so how do you grow if you're not able to climb the mountain? How do you grow without sunlight? How do you grow without the heat and the frustration, right? So how do you grow? You have to grow through these challenges, these adversities, right? Adversity builds character. There's a reason why it's said. We have that saying. So this is the cold shower stuff. Look up the Wim Hof method. There's the breathing part there. There's the cold shower. Right after you do the exercise, the repeating the mantra, the mirroring, probably combine the two. Do the same thing, except now do it through the Wim Hof method breathing, and just let go it, and just go and go straight into the shower. Go straight into, like, do a bit of warm shower stuff. You want to do that, or you can go straight into cold shower. You'll feel that shock, and you stay there. You really need to choose to stay there and be like, and be okay with it. And it's not gonna definitely just go away overnight. Make it a practice. Okay? I wrote down here some notes for myself. So when we bring it more towards the body, it reaches the oldest part of the brain, the subconscious, because the body is linked to the older part of the brain, the reptilian brain, and it becomes sort of normalized over time and accepted physically. So the traumatic feeling, you get used to it. So there's at least less trauma, emotions, and all that stuff that don't get lodged in there and stuck in the subconscious, which can become unconscious reactivity, unconscious behavior, all those things. So it needs to be done physically. I would say, like, yeah, go with the extremes of this. You know, I learned that when it comes to the cold showers and exercising, but the thing with exercising is that that's why people who haven't exercised, they do get endorphins from exercise. But if you don't have that, that's totally fine. Those are what you call eustress. These are positive stress. It's good for the body because it's beneficial. It makes you stronger. De-stress is the one you want to not have in life. But with this one, when you train yourself to do this one, it's a practice, right? You start to get used to this. You know, one day leads to a week leads to a month leads to a year, right? Next thing you know, you're like, oh, okay, totally fine, right? Absolutely. So give that a try. So again, just to list down the things, I'll put it in the comments below. I mean, the description below. Step 1, you want that, whatever those words, a list of words that you have that are qualities that annoy you or that trigger you. Okay, and then 2, you want to make a sort of a mantra exercise. Sort of a mantra. Again, this is not about the methodology, method, anything like that. You're using this as a way to kind of, what you want is to alter that energy in you, right? Then you kind of tell yourself, okay. I would probably even add to this, before you even go into the showers, list down the positive things, the gifts that you can find in those things that you believe about yourself. When you say, what is the gift behind being stupid? It could be many things, right? Meaning that you are more relaxed because you care less about the details of things. Being stupid means what is another gift of being stupid? That's the first one I thought of. Being stupid means that you just, like, you don't give a fuck anymore. It's almost like you kind of just like, okay, well, that's, you know. So that means you do not only, you feel relaxed, but you also feel like, oh, I've literally, like, learned to just let go. It's like, yeah, I'm stupid. Okay, you know. So true. Let's make an acronym of the word stupid. 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 So 6. So true. Under pressure is delightful. That's a good one. Okay. See, I love coming up with this thing. So true. What did I say? So true. Under pressure is delightful. not true. I think it was- So yeah, there you go. So that means that when you're stupid, it means that you're just like, what pressure? It's all in my head. It's all in the head. So in other words, you're getting out of that. Then you combine it with this like this cold shower thing, and you feel like, talking about this makes me want to go take another cold shower. It's like I just love it. It's really like, it's kind of like you can say it's a natural drug, and it's kind of like telling you, it's okay. It's totally okay to surrender, because the reality is that this life we have, this life, this form, literally this life, whether it's your only one or it's one of the only ones, or if you're going to repeat, it doesn't matter. It's temporary. It is temporary. You think about the grand scale of things. Your source is energy. Your source is source. Process that for a bit. Source is energy. Source is eternal. It's love. It's beauty. Beyond the words. So being connected with that through the simplest things, the ones that are not egoic and are not attached to it. So you go to the water, you go to the cold, you go to the beingness, you go to its true essence of what things actually just are. You learn to deal with these imagined slights, imagined sort of delusions, and you see it as like, oh, well, those are thoughts. Like the guy at work, he was stuck in that thought, and he got sucked into that thought that he wasn't getting what he wanted. And I kind of got stuck in it a little bit too. I kind of just like, I went, and then it's like, okay, well, no. So it's a process. It doesn't have to, it's not about perfect. This isn't about perfect, imperfect. This is about the fact that because everything is temporary, there's nothing to worry about. There really is nothing. There's nothing to hold on to. And when you're worrying, you're attached to it, right? You're worrying, you're attached to the outcome. You're attached to what will happen. You're attached to time. You're attached to this will happen, and you start to create more thoughts of it. So it's in other words, thought after thought after thought. But to get away from that, not to get rid of thought, you want to rise above that thought. You want to go, okay, it's a thought. You start to feel it once you put it into practice. Okay, you just got to put it into practice. Anyways, so there's my, you can say 2 cents, about the whole thing. So this will help you in the long run, especially with the coming year. I hope this helps you guys. This is like a video that I just came to me, and I was looking forward to sharing this, and I thought, okay, cool, talk about Uranus and something I'm quite familiar with, and I want to share with you guys more things. But right there, look up the Wim Hof method, look up shadow work with Wim Hof method, and combine it, even if it's not Wim Hof method, but like exercise and cold shower. Do something that will release that and train the body again to go like, okay. Dance in the cold shower. Have fun. Be childlike. Have fun. In case, I'll see you guys all later. I hope this helps, and I wish you guys a very wonderful, connected, wholesome experience, at the very least, this coming week. Happy holidays, whatever you celebrate. I will see you guys later or next year. Bye.